Felt Recoil Show. Are you ready?
Ready as I'm going to be.
Get set. Here we go.
This is Felt Recoil.
Welcome to the Felt Recoil Podcast. This is, where are we at? Wait, episode 55. And in 55 episodes, this is the first episode where we have a special guest host, Jonathan Brayton. Everyone, welcome. Everybody, welcome. Everybody. It's just us, buddy.
Just us.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Patrick is away on business, and so the common man is replaced by Jonathan Brayton. And we're, if you don't know, Jonathan was a guest on this show. You were, what episode were you? Number 9?
That's right.
Number 9. You've been putting that on your resume for a while now.
Yep.
And so you can go back and listen to the first meeting we have with Jonathan. But he's here to sit in on behalf of Patrick. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of things to get to. We're just reading this like literally within the last hour. I believe that's correct. President Trump has recognized Israel's capital as Jerusalem and has ordered the U.S. Embassy to move. If you don't know, by the way, Bill Clinton signed the law that said the U.S. officially recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital in 1995. So it's been, what would you say, symbolically traditional for presidents to recognize it, but it's never been real public. And so now we really thumbed the eye of all the terrorists around the world. So that's a lot of fun. Some clarification on national reciprocity. Jimmy Kimmel interrupting church services, because, you know, that's what fascists do. And then a judge, this one blows my mind, and this judge is going to be our vote of the week. A judge has barred Starbucks from closing 77 stores. Says they have to stay open. Really weird, but we'll get into all that and much more. First, our charity of choice this week is rather personal, so bear with me as I explain it to you. But around this time last week, my mom's sister, my Aunt Alice, suffered a brain aneurysm and survived. Apparently, what happened to her, only 15% of people that it happens to actually survive. She is in ICU. She's under 24/7 hour watch care. My mom is there in Georgia helping care for her. She has a husband who's doing a great job looking out for her. She has 3 kids, and on I could go. But the point is, Alice has a long road ahead. 2 weeks in ICU recovery minimum, and then a minimum 9 to 12 month recovery period. She's aware of who people are when she does wake up, so that's a really good sign. Things are looking positive, but she could use your financial help. She works in a grocery store in the floral section, loves her job, but obviously in a time like this, every little bit can help her and her husband focus on what's most important, and that's not money. So maybe we could pitch in a little bit. So you can donate to the GoFundMe fund that will go straight to her and her husband and to her medical bills. It will all go right there. It's fully accountable. Just visit facebook.com/FeltRecoilShow. Any little bit, even if you just give $1, we'd be really, really grateful for that. And we're going to send it over to Alice, her husband, and her family and try and get them a little bit of help and support. Okay? That would be great. I'd appreciate it, but don't feel obligated. But if you could, thank you very much. Okay, Jonathan Brayton, where do you want to start?
Let's start with Jerusalem.
All right, starting in God's land, huh?
That's right.
Okay, this is the New York Times. New York Times. Put your head back on. Jonathan's head literally just fell off. President Trump on Wednesday formally recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, reversing nearly 7 decades of American foreign policy and setting in motion a plan to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to the fiercely contested Holy City. Obviously, they're conflating 2 things there. 7 decades of American foreign policy as far as our embassy, not as far as the capital of Jerusalem. Anyway, Mr. Trump said from the diplomatic reception room of the White House, quote, "Today we finally acknowledge the obvious that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do. It's something that has to be done."
Yeah.
I love it.
I do too.
It's one of those things where when the terrorists are mad at you, you know you're doing something right.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I was talking to my brother today about this old boss he had, and he said she was one of those people that if she was mad at me, I knew I was doing my job correctly because she always wanted it to be done the wrong way. And I laughed about that, but it's kind of the same way. If Palestine is angry with what you're doing, you're probably doing something right? Because it means Jews aren't dying.
That's right. Well, I mean, they don't even think that Israel has a right to exist. So, I mean, it's a big move, and it's going to make a lot of the region upset.
You were in the military and deployed overseas.
I was.
Where were you when you went overseas? Afghanistan, is that right?
I did Iraq and Afghanistan.
All right. Mm-hmm. So I ask because there always seems to be this thing where people go, well, we just can't go around doing things like this because it upsets the locals, and then everybody's upset, and the whole foreign policy schism of the U.S. is thrown into chaos. As someone who's been over there and dealt with those people, and not like the Palestinians, but were you ever under the impression that the Afghans, the Iraqis were super concerned about America's position on things, or were they more concerned with what we were actually doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Were they in the streets discussing policy positions of the U.S. presidency?
I don't believe they were. No. Just local things. I don't think that they were more concerned about what we were doing on a global scale. I'm sure that if you had an occupying force come in to your neighborhood,
they take over Taylor, South Carolina.
You probably wouldn't be, very receptive of them. But also, right. I don't think they were upset what we were doing around the world.
If Jonathan is president for a day, does he hesitate to take these strong stands? Would you? So, from your vantage point, is it worth considering? Well, how will the enemies of our friends perceive this, and should we walk on eggshells to keep them happy, or do we just do it full force and say, hey, let the consequences be what they will be? We do what's right.
Well, I think the New York Times article said that it's been 70 years that
of American foreign policy
that we've recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Well, no. Well, so what they're doing is saying they're reversing nearly 7 decades of American foreign policy, which is about what I believe they're talking about there is where our embassy is located, because we're moving it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem now. Okay. So we've always had the embassy in Tel Aviv, not in Jerusalem. So we've acknowledged formally that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel since 1995. And now we're reversing the 7 decades of foreign policy that say the embassy is in Tel Aviv, right?
Gotcha.
That's what I think they're saying. I mean, they're writing it in a way where you would assume that for the last 70 years, the U.S. has not thought Jerusalem as the capital. That's how. So let's read it again. President Trump on Wednesday formally recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, reversing nearly 7 decades of American foreign policy and setting in motion a plan to move the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to the fiercely contested Holy City. So I believe that what they really are saying, well, let's just see there's this thing called Google I'm going to use. When was the U.S. Embassy put in Tel Aviv? Now, this is really good for making sure. Jerusalem. Look at this. Wait a second. So this is from Wikipedia. I had Googled when was the U.S. Embassy put in Tel Aviv. Embassy of the United States, Tel Aviv. The Embassy of the United States of America in Tel Aviv is the diplomatic mission of the U.S. in the state of Israel. The embassy complex opened in 1966 and is located in Tel Aviv. So wait a second. Where did it go? The Jerusalem Embassy Act, passed by Congress in 1995, requires the United States to relocate its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem by December 31st, 1999.
How'd that work out?
Right. Apparently not at all. A guy put on, and Fox News posted this, and a guy put, well, now when people die because of this, Trump and his supporters have to take the blame for those deaths. And I thought, how funny that we would be frightened. If we were worried about death due to doing what's right, we would all be British subjects.
That's right.
Or German, as another lady pointed out. We would be speaking German, or we'd be British subjects, like that little punk. We would be subjects to that punk who won't invite Trump to his wedding just because he doesn't like him. Sorry, don't care if you don't get invited to Prince Harry's wedding. Nobody cares about Prince Harry except those subjected to his tyrannical rule. But I digress. Let's keep going. We'll pick this apart a little bit more. We acknowledge the obvious. The president cast his decision as a break with decades of failed policy on Jerusalem, says the New York Times, which the U.S., along with virtually every other nation in the world, has declined to recognize as the capital since Israel's founding in 1948. That's wrong. That policy, he said, brought us no closer to a lasting peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. It would be folly to assume that repeating the exact same formula would now produce a different or better result, says Mr. Trump. Recognizing Jerusalem, he added, was a, quote, long overdue step to advance the peace process. I think that's true because how many times has Israel tried to make peace and its neighbors refuse it, right?
That's right.
So for us to come in and say, now we firmly stand with Israel, you want to get the bully to stop beating your kid up on the playground? Show up at the playground one day.
Yep.
And say, I'm not messing around anymore. If you mess with him, you mess with me, and I will kick you in the face. I've done this. Trust me, it works. And that little schoolyard bully will leave your kid alone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not crazy to think that way.
Right. I don't think Palestinians are your average run-of-the-mill schoolyard bullies either. But I think you're right. I also think that they've estimated this is going to take 3 to 4 years to be able to move the embassy from Tel Aviv, and they're going to take into account a lot of security measures, and there's not even a suitable place for them to put the embassy at this point. I think they said there's around 1,000 personnel that would be involved with the embassy that would have to move.
Moly.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is.
But I think that Trump is right when he says, this is going to help us, with peace talks in the future. And I believe that they've got 3 to 4 years to come up with a plan and put it in place. And once that embassy is there, then you're right. If that schoolyard bully reaches over and, tags Israel, tags Jerusalem, then we're gonna answer back.
And now, exactly. And so now Israel has clout going into these peace talks, and they're able to say, hey, look, the United States recognizes this is our capital, and they're moving an embassy here. I wouldn't mess around about that. But you do what you need to do, Palestine. But if you kill Americans in Jerusalem, it's going to be a whole nother story nowadays. And I think Trump cares about the Jewish people, too. I don't think Obama ever did, if I'm being real frank about it. I don't think he really cared much about the Jewish state. And I think he did that to placate the far lefties of the world. And now it's nice to me to see the good guys get support when they need it. That's all I'm saying. It is interesting. Just watch this segue. It's about to be awesome. It is interesting that the left gets so worked up that we would be in any way in contention with Palestine, which elects terrorists to run its country. Okay. So Palestinian people can act as innocent as they want, but they continually elect violent jihadists into their governing bodies and ask them to take care of the Jewish problem, as they would phrase it. It's interesting that the left is upset that the Palestinian terrorists are upset. It's interesting that the left is trying to paint the right as the fascists. And then consider this from CNN.com. And by the way, please always note that we're citing liberal sources for these stories, okay? I'm not drawing this from all the conservative places, but here you go. From CNN, embattled Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore was interrupted by a protester and a comedian posing as a supporter Wednesday evening as he spoke during a church service in southern Alabama. That's all I'm going to read about it. We know it was Jimmy Kimmel and his people. It was Jimmy Kimmel and his people interrupted the church service. Interrupted a church service. This was a worship service where Roy Moore was going to speak and give his testimony, and the ABC late night host thought it was okay to go in and interrupt that in order to be funny and to prove a political point.
Hilarious.
Now, what group of people would you suggest are most likely to walk into a house of worship and interrupt the service in order to prove a political point? I would say the fascists and the Nazis. That's who I would suggest. They want to go in and disrupt any sort of dissenting points of view, any sort of religious ideology they don't want. There's a reason leftists tend to be atheistic, because if you have any sort of accountability to a higher power, you can't just do whatever you want, right? Which is kind of what modern liberal thought is. Instead of every man being free, it's become every man does what he wants. That's not what classic liberalism is. But my point is, I think that's worth keeping in mind as you progress your way through the idea that we're bad for recognizing Israel, and the left gets mad over that, and then we're bad because we want to go to church on Wednesday night and pray, and we'll come and interrupt it because we don't like the people you have speaking at your church. Why is that not a hate crime, you think?
The long and short of it is because it was probably a lot of white Christian. And white Christians are not capable of having hate crimes committed against them.
I see. Because only white people can be racist.
Correct.
I understand now. If you haven't, by the way, get on YouTube and search out Mark Dice and look at one of his most recent uploads where he has the mayor of that small town crying because the city council member tells her there's no such thing as white privilege. Have you seen that?
No.
It is brilliant. Go to facebook.com/Felt Recoil Show. It's up there. You can see we shared it. But she literally begins weeping and saying, I care about these people and you don't, because you don't acknowledge your white privilege. And it's all white people. The mayor's white. Everybody's white. And the mayor's point is we can't properly govern the people of our town because we're all white. So we have to do something about that.
Wow.
It's unreal, but funny, but also concerning. Okay. Anywho, so they love Palestine, hate the Christians. I guess I'm starting to get it. Last week, I told you, by the way, that national reciprocity was coming. And then we shared a status from Congressman Thomas Massey, where he is claiming that all sorts of craziness is about to happen with the national reciprocity bill. Okay. He says that they're going to amend the Brady bill when it hits the floor to be voted on in the House this week. He says, as chairman of the Second Amendment caucus, I'm blowing the whistle on the swamp. Last week, Republicans in the House fast-tracked a gun bill titled Fix NICS. The Senate version of the bill is co-sponsored by Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer, and it will send $625 million over 5 years to states to expand the national background check database. The bill will also advance former President Obama's agenda of pressuring every branch of the administration to submit thousands of more names to the NICS background check database to deny gun purchases. What you don't know, and what virtually no one in Washington wants you to know, is that House leadership plans to merge the two bills together, the Fix NICS and the concealed carry reciprocity legislation, and pass both of them in a single vote. Folks, this is how the swamp works. House leadership expects constituents to call their representatives demanding a vote on the reciprocity bill, when in fact the only vote will be on the two combined bills. Now, the NRA and the Institute for Legislative Action inside of the NRA is fact-checking the congressman's statement. He included, according to the NRA, there's several inaccurate statements about the Fix NICS bill, and they want to set the record straight. So when Massey claims that the bill will advance former Obama's agenda, they're saying the fact is the bill requires that federal agencies submit the names of anyone who is already prohibited by law from possessing a firearm to NICS. His claim that the bill is being rammed through without a hearing in a very non-transparent process, they say the fact is the bill went through a very thorough and public markup session of its own. The claim that it spends over $500 million to collect more names, they say the fact is the bill incentivizes states to transmit the records of individuals who under current law are already prohibited from possessing a firearm. By the way, I like that it's called Fix NICS, as if NICS is the problem. NICS is the actual background check system where the names go to see who's allowed to own a gun, right? It doesn't fix the problem that agencies aren't talking to NICS.
Right.
So it should be a fix the agencies bill.
Correct.
But I guess that's not as cute sounding. I don't know. But let's talk national reciprocity. The idea behind the National Reciprocity Bill is that if you have a concealed weapons permit or concealed carry permit or whatever your state calls it, we call them CWPs, concealed weapon permit. If you have one, it has your picture on it, and it's issued to you by the state in which you live, and your driver's license matches, you are good to carry in any state that issues in any way whatsoever concealed carry permits. You do have to carry within their limitations. So if you travel to New York and they have a 10-round limit on your magazines, you got to carry a gun with 10-round mags in it, right? Good idea, bad idea. What's Jonathan's take on it?
For national reciprocity?
Yes, sir. Under those circumstances, or you can amend it if you would see fit.
Well, I mean, given the current laws, I think that's a great idea. Because I'm not sure I'm not a CWP instructor, so I'm not positive.
Right.
How many states is South Carolina CWP recognizing? I think it's 13 states.
Ooh, I thought it was more like 30. You could be right. There residents of reciprocal states who hold permits. Let's see, Alaska, Arizona. So all these states also recognize South Carolina. Ready?
Okay.
Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, New Mexico, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Texas, Tennessee is 20.
Wow.
Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming, 23.
23 states.
Yeah. That's according to South Carolina Law Enforcement Division.
And geographically, pretty much every state that we border, you can, go to. And I was thinking there was one that we weren't recognizing. Maybe Georgia
used to be. Yes, used to be Georgia, and then last year we reached an agreement with them finally where we recognize each other.
So if you were going to go on vacation with your family to Florida and you wanted to carry a concealed weapon, you could not travel through the state of Georgia legally with your concealed weapon up until a year ago.
Right. That's about right. Yep.
So the same thing in those. Well, there's 57 states, right? According to Obama.
Mr. Obama. Yes, sir.
So the other, we're recognizing 23, but the other 27 states,
they hate us.
I think it would be a great thing to be able to carry in those as well.
Yeah, it does make you wonder. I mean, it's a constitutional right? And,
sure.
And granted, we don't. Yeah, we could compare it this way. Just imagine if you're on vacation and you go to New York and you go into a restaurant in New York City and you bow your head to pray for your meal, which is very common here in the South. A lot of people do that every day, every meal. Imagine going to New York and you begin to bow your head and pray and somebody comes up and goes, hey, whoa. It's illegal in New York. And you go, what, to pray for my food? And they go, yeah, absolutely. You can't do that in the state of New York. Yes, I can. It's called the First Amendment, and nobody is ever allowed to make a law restraining my right to worship in that sense.
Oh, that's what it shall not be infringed means?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So nobody is allowed to suddenly pass a law that says you can't exercise your Second Amendment right. And the Supreme Court has now determined that your Second Amendment right extends beyond your home. And so certainly within a state's boundaries, it can say, well, okay, so it can extend beyond your home, but it can't extend into this arena. And they can say, courts,
sure,
hospitals, doctors' offices, things like that, which they do in South Carolina. They can certainly do that, but they can't tell me that I can't come into their state and exercise a God-given right to carry a firearm to protect myself.
Even in your own
family.
vehicle.
Right. Exactly. I think if it's in my car and I understand the argument on keeping it out of sight so as to not incite panic from the morons who would see it. I also think strategically that's smart. I would be okay with that. Is that legal? Should it be allowed? We can have that conversation later, but I would be okay with them saying it's legal anywhere you want to take it inside your own vehicle that's registered to your name, but you have to keep it out of sight. That's fine. That's common ground, I think. But I do get perturbed with the idea of you can't even enter our state. I mean, look at New Jersey. Most of what I own, if I drove into the state of New Jersey with it in my car, I would get arrested and go to jail. The single mother, remember that? The single mother from Pennsylvania. she had a concealed carry permit and drove into New Jersey with her child in the car and kept her gun with her. And they arrested her, and Kris Christie sent her off to jail and said, no, it's not the way things work. Can't have guns in the state of New Jersey. Peasant. Yeah, nor can you eat at my buffet. And he like elbows her out of the way. She falls on the floor. He's like, let him eat cake. And that's how it ends. I think that's exactly what happened. Now that I think about it, that is exactly what happened. Anyway, so don't get caught in the crossfire there is what I will say. Go to facebook.com/Felt Recoil Show, and you can see our post that says NRA corrects the record, and you can read the article I'm reading to you about Congressman Massey's take on national reciprocity. You decide. I still think it's something you should call your representative about and just urge them. And I would tell you two quick things. Number one, when I was in South Georgia, I was in a town where they proposed this law. This is going to make me sound like an alcoholic. But they proposed a law where you could no longer open any liquor stores in the town. Okay. So basically they drew a map and they said, you can't open another liquor store within 6 miles of an existing liquor store. And that basically took up the whole town. Now, I don't really care how many liquor stores are in a town or aren't in a town. But what I do care about is the free market and the right of the individual to create industry uninhibited by the government. So I had a conversation with my city councilman at the time in private, and I said to him, here's my issue with that. If you allow this to happen, then what prevents somebody who disagrees with your take on life from presenting and passing a law that says no more churches of a certain faith within 6 miles of a church of the same faith? And he said, that's a decent point, but it's not the same thing. I said, but I think it is, because it's a principle at stake. It's the idea of what can the government regulate. Certainly you can tell me no liquor stores within a vicinity of an elementary school.
Right.
That is, any reasonable person would understand that restriction. And you can do that with a whole host of things. If you're going to sell pornography, you can't do it within a certain distance of a school, or cigarettes or alcohol in general. Fine, totally get it. What I don't get is just telling them they're not allowed to operate, because what it sounds like is that certain business owners have you in their pocket, and they've said, let's monopolize the liquor trade of Warner Robins, right? And I'll have you know, I don't take all the credit, but I'll have you know that he changed his vote and later told me, your point stuck with me very well, that we were kind of creating a slippery slope, and that it did look like we were available to business owners who wanted to get together and say, well, no more of these types of businesses either. So that works.
How much money did you slip him?
I gave him $100.
That's the only way politicians change their vote.
Well, maybe, but it's a small town, and I think more than just me got to him.
Mr. Washington gonna change your mind?
No money. But I do still wash his car and mow his grass every week. It's a 4.5 hour round trip. The second story is that when we moved to Greenville, moved back here where we live now, I emailed my local state congressman, and I said, hey, man, or senator, the state senator from my little district. And I said, hey, and I don't remember what it was. I said, but this is happening, and I just want to be sure we're on the same page. And he sent back and said, I'm totally on the same page. So my point is, these people are listening. Mm-hmm. And really, the local guys are the easiest ones to get a hold of. I have Trey Gowdy as my congressman. I'm not going to get a hold of Trey Gowdy anytime soon. No. I get that standard stock response of thanks for your interest in talking to Trey Gowdy, but he's busy type thing. It's like, come on, man. I just want a picture, just a selfie with you. And why do you change your haircut every 3 days?
He's got the beard thing going every now and then. I don't know what is up with him.
I feel like he's running from Pelosi. Maybe he's just constantly in disguise. So he's always changing it, Yeah. He knows that she's senile. She won't be able to keep it straight. Trey Gowdy has a beard. I know. I've seen it. I don't even know what I'm talking about. The point is, the link is up. So go. There's a phone number in the article that you can call the DC switchboard and get your congressman's office and just tell them, hey, just want to make sure you understand that the people I'm talking to and the people that are calling you want national reciprocity. I think it's smart. Get the confusion out of the way. You're going to have less people going to jail for stupid things. And I got no problems with it. Okay? Clear as mud? Okay. All right.
Awesome.
That's our fact check. Okay. This one, speaking of government not being allowed to inhibit on this is crazy. If you don't know, Starbucks owns the Teavana store chain. And Starbucks announced that it was closing all 77 of them. And an Indiana judge has taken the unusual step, according to the New York Post, and has barred Starbucks from closing 77 failing Teavana stores in Simon Property Group malls because the real estate giant was less able to handle the financial pain. Starbucks announced in July that it planned to shutter its 379 store Teavana operation, but Simon rushed to court to block 77 stores in its malls from going dark, claiming that such a move by a high-profile tenant could spark other stores in its malls to close. Starbucks, after trying to turn around its stumbling tea chain, said last August it was pulling the plug on Teavana. It wanted to close all the stores by the end of the year. But Indianapolis-based Simon, in an environment where hundreds of stores across the country are closing, rushed to a local court to ask Judge Heather Welch to stop the store closing. Welch, in a 55-page order, found that the very profitable Starbucks could absorb the financial hit, estimated by Starbucks to be $15 million over 5 months. They could absorb the hit better than Simon could. The mall operator did not provide an estimate on how much the closings of the Teavana stores would hurt them. The case is being closely watched by retailers and landlords alike amid a retail meltdown that has resulted in a record number of bankruptcies this year. Here's what I hope happens. You tell me. As absurd as that whole story is.
I was going to say, I got to pick up my head again because it just blew up.
Right? In what world do we live where a judge can go, hey, you know what? I don't want this guy to lose the money. I want you to lose the money. And even though what you're doing is trying to break your lease and pay the fee that's agreed to in your lease to break the lease early, I'm going to have to say no. No, now you have to lose, what was it, $15 million over 3 months or 5 months? I lost the numbers. It's Starbucks.
5 months? 6 months?
I think it was over 5 months. $15 million over 5 months. You now have to lose $3 million a month. And I don't care that it's Starbucks. I'm sure it's a drop in the bucket for Starbucks. But I don't care who it is. How does a judge, an unelected official most likely, have the right to tell a company they have to lose money so that somebody else doesn't?
I don't understand it.
That's absurd. It's absurd. Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
What is the incentive to even provide decent customer service at these 77 locations
If you're forced to be there.
if you're forced to be there?
I'd probably just leave them in place and shutter them. Like I would close the store and not employ anybody just to prove the point.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
What employee is going to want to work at a store for the next 5 months knowing that at the end of 5 months they're going to get the axe?
Yeah. Or I wonder if Starbucks could just transfer them all into Starbucks. Like, okay, here's a Teavana location. Sure, there's a Starbucks upstairs, but you know what? The mall could use 2 Starbucks. So you're now a Starbucks. What I hope happens is that all the major giants of the retail industry tell Simon, if you play like that with Starbucks, we won't do business with you anymore. We won't go into any of your new locations. And when our lease is up, we're going to reconsider it because we won't be bullied by somebody who obviously you're not attracting people to your malls. That's on you.
Right.
If you own the mall, it's not on Starbucks to bring people to the mall. It's on you to tell people there's a Starbucks, there's a Gap, there's a Orvis, there's a whatever draws, the eclectic crowd into the mall, right? Get them in there and stop acting like it's Starbucks' fault that your mall's not doing well enough for them to sell tea, or vice versa. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's right.
That's crazy to me that a judge can force a business to stay open, a not profitable business to stay open.
Let's
mind blown.
Let's see if we can distill this down and imagine that you go out in your front yard and start a lemonade stand, and you say, all right, I've got this lemonade stand. I'm selling lemonade for $1 a pop. And then you're making $10 worth of lemonade every week, but you're only selling 3 cups, 1 to each of your neighbors. Well, then you go, well, I'm not going to do the lemonade stand anymore. So the next Saturday, your neighbor knocks on the door and he goes, hey, man, I want to get some lemonade. You go, man, sorry, we're not doing lemonade anymore. Just we weren't able to sell enough. And he goes, no, I need the lemonade. And you say, yeah, but, I was kind of operating at a loss. It was costing me $7 a week to put it out there, plus my time. So really, I'm probably losing. If I focus my efforts elsewhere, I can probably make money. I've decided to mow yards and make $20 per yard, and I can do that instead of losing. No. You don't understand. I came here for lemonade, and you have to sell me the lemonade. And you go, no. And then you get a notice that your neighbor is suing you in court because you've decided to not sell lemonade anymore. And the judge tells you you have to operate your lemonade stand because your neighbor wants the lemonade and you are more financially well put, right? You're better off financially than your neighbor is because now we've looked at the numbers. And so you can absorb the $7 a week better than your neighbor can. So yeah, you now have a court order requiring you to be in your driveway every Saturday morning selling lemonade so he can come and get it. Is there a difference? I don't know that I think there is.
Yeah, I mean, minus the high dollar lease agreements and things between Simon and T-Von or Starbucks.
Right.
But yeah, essentially that's right.
And
you have to stay open.
I'm not going to imagine for a second that Starbucks wouldn't pay to get out of the lease. If they're hurting that much, if they're going to hemorrhage $3 million a month per store, $3 million total. Okay, yeah. So we're losing $3 million a month. Okay, how much does it cost us to get out of each lease? Right? So you do that money, you do that math, and you go, okay, well, we're going to save money by just paying to get out of every lease. So just terminate the lease early. To me, Simon makes money that way, right? Because, well, now I've got an open space and they had to buy their way out of the lease. So let me lease that space out. And in a way, you're double dipping, right?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't understand it at all. But again, I'm no expert. Okay. Did I miss anything? Did we not touch on something you wanted to touch on? I think we covered it all.
There's plenty of things that Al Franken has touched on.
Oh, good point. Wait a second.
Do you like that segue?
I like that segue. By the way, Judge Welch is our VOTA of the week. But let's move to Al Franken. What is the number of people now demanding Al Franken? Let's see. Al Franken.
Got to be double digits by now. There was another one today that Al Franken had his own radio show. And that he grabbed her and tried to kiss her.
Same thing.
She ran away, and he said, "How dare you? It's my right as an entertainer." Which I think is going a little far to say that Al Franken is entertaining at all.
Yeah, old Stewart. All right, from CNN, embattled Senator Al Franken will make an announcement Thursday. His office has told reporters. This is from Wednesday, December the 6th. As calls for the Minnesota Democrats' resignation rapidly gained momentum Wednesday in dramatic fashion, 31 Democratic senators, 13 female and 18 male, including the second-ranking Democrat in the chamber, have called on Franken to resign as allegations of sexual harassment against him continue to mount. Republican Senator Susan Collins also called on Franken to quit. In a statement on Facebook, New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand wrote, quote, "While Senator Franken is entitled to have the Ethics Committee conclude its review, I believe it would be better for our country if he sent a clear message that any kind of mistreatment of women in our society isn't acceptable by stepping aside to let someone else serve." 13 women and 18 men senators, 31 total. Just Democrats asking him to resign. That is crazy. Chuck Schumer, by the way, said no comment at this point.
Oh, Chuck.
Yeah, He's the Senate Minority Leader, and he's not asking for Franken to step down. He doesn't care if you sexually assault women. He's cool with it. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's the conclusion we draw.
Yeah. But, these are women that have come forward and there's a lot of proof. He's not denying any of these allegations. The Tweeden one, the first one, I think Leanne Tweeden came out. Mm-hmm. He said that he was very sorry and that he does not recall that same situation. He recalls it differently than she did.
Right.
But he wasn't denying the allegations completely, where Roy Moore has completely denied all of the allegations, and there's, to my knowledge, not any veracity to any of the allegations against him.
Right. Not only that, we now know that the main accuser lost her child to her mother, and her mother's lawyer was Roy Moore.
That's right.
That's why she's coming after Roy Moore. if you want to see the most awkward interview possible, go to facebook.com/philrecoilshow and watch CBS, the local CBS. Watch them interview Al Franken.
I saw that.
It is awesome. It is awesome because she asks him, I mean, have you ever grabbed a woman's butt? Can a woman come out and say you grabbed her butt? And he goes, listen, I've taken thousands of photos, lots of cramped spaces. I don't know. That's not going to get said. It's like, what?
I grabbed a lot of butts.
What are you talking about? I could tell you every girl I've ever run up to and grabbed her butt without permission. Definitely something I would remember. So weird. So weird.
Well, it's his right as an entertainer.
I forgot. I consider, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use that on my wife tonight.
Right?
Baby.
It's my right.
This is my right. I'm an entertainer. I have a podcast.
That's right. You are an entertainer.
Are you not entertained? She's going to go, no, I'm not. Get off me and put some clothes on. Are you not entertained? It's my right. What adult. He is such an idiot.
It's funny how up until today, he's been protected, though.
Sure.
And I'm not sure
what's coming, right?
Why is this one woman that came out today now the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back? Where was the straw that broke Bill Clinton's back? Where?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you haven't sat down and heard Juanita Broaddrick's recounting,
sure,
of being raped by Bill Clinton,
yeah,
and not just be repulsed by it, that hasn't been around for the last 2 or 3 months that the whole Harvey Weinstein sexual assault has brought on.
Yeah, this avalanche
the
of
mindset,
accusations. Yeah.
The mindset of women accusers, and this has been around for decades.
Well,
decades. Juanita Broaddrick,
and here's what I would suggest: the difference
hasn't been believed.
The difference is that Bill Clinton has very deep pockets, which have likely supported a lot of these people. Probably a lot of these people have made a lot of money off the Clinton family and its foundation. So do you bite the hand that feeds you? Or is it easier to go after somebody like Al Franken, who really, I mean, how much does he have? Who's he supporting?
He's got 1 Senate vote. That's
right.
it.
So it's easier to sacrifice him and then to turn around and go, I mean, yeah, Bill was wrong for what he did, but, you know, the justice system does what it does, and so we can't really worry about that anymore. It's easy to do. Although, why is it at the time it was okay? You know?
It was never okay.
But to them it was, right?
Right.
You're exactly right. It's never been okay, but to the left, it was okay at the time. At the time, it was a vast right-wing conspiracy.
Right. It's okay when they want it to be okay.
If you can pay enough, you can do whatever you want, right? I mean, we know that Bill Clinton flew on a jet multiple times with a man who has his private island dedicated to having sex with underage people. We know that's a thing. Why it hasn't been shut down, I don't know, but we know it exists. We know it's a thing. We know Clinton did it, and yet the left still idolizes the man. Who knows why, except it's got to be that he's got deep pockets, so he can buy their submission, right?
What's that guy's name? Jeff
Epstein.
Jeffrey
Epstein, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. His Lolita Express.
Such a strange
I don't think we've heard the last of that, though. I hope not. I think that there's more to come about that.
I hope the next thing we hear is that one of the kids who has been sold into that his or her father finds him or her and then gets a hold of Bill Clinton. That would be like the ideal situation, right? They break it all up, and it's like a movie like what's that Liam Neeson movie where his
Taken?
daughter, yeah, it's like Taken.
I will find you.
Yeah, and then Liam Neeson's character finds Bill Clinton, you know, and he's all in that shady brothel trying to do things to his daughter, and he just pummels him, and I don't know, maybe throws him off a roof. I don't know how the movie ends.
That's too good for him to just die that quickly. He should rot in a prison cell.
Okay, I'm down with that. Although pedophiles really don't get to rot in prison cells. They usually get their head introduced to a toilet, Jeffrey Dahmer style, you know, that kind of stuff. But
I'd be fine with
yeah. I mean, we're just talking about a movie here.
Right.
Not really sure. Like in real life, he should just go to jail. But if there were a movie about it, in Hollywood, and it was a Bill Clinton-esque character, is what we're saying.
Right.
That guy could get thrown off a building, hanged in a public square, firing squad.
Hey, Al Franken could play him in the movie because I'm pretty sure he's going to be looking for work in the next few weeks.
And it's the Stuart Smalley character because that kind of would look like Clinton.
Yeah.
Man. Jonathan, brilliant, my friend. Brilliant. Okay, we're at our limits. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
Patrick, hurry back.
I don't know. This is kind of
stay
fun.
away. Yeah.
I didn't get all the judgmental glances I'm used to every week. All right, more fun at feltrecoilshow.com. Don't forget to find us on facebook.com/feltrecoilshow. And we will see you next time for more of the Felt Recoil Podcast.